Hello, friends. Welcome inside, at least for me, Ben Garrett. The Riverland Roofing Studios. Riverland Roofing for all your roofing needs. 662-644-4297. RiverlandRoofing.com. Our thanks to Game Day Haircuts. Our thanks to Allen Sandwich Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Oxford. Our thanks to C-Spire and so many more. B&A Bank, who power everything we do here at Talk of Champions. Got today on the show Connor O'Gara. He hosts the OG Kickoff of Next Round Live, but also is a staffer for Saturday Down South. And we're going to talk to him about SEC spring practice matters, among other things. But first and foremost, Mr. Brad Logan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing really well. And I want to say, too, we had a great remote Game Day Haircuts of Oxford and ton of positive feedback about that. So I want to say thank you to the staff there. And look forward to the remotes that we have coming up very, very soon. And thank you for everything you do for us here on the Talk of Champions. A lot of stuff to come, a lot of irons in the fire with this show, and we're very, very excited about what we're doing down the road and in the future. Yeah, Connor, mainly, Ben, I want to talk to him about what is the national perspective about what Ole Miss is as a program right now, going through spring. Obviously, with some new faces on offense in the coaching room and that sort of thing, just kind of get the overarching view also of this whole NIL platform that the government is now involved with. So I'm excited to talk to Connor about that as well. So we'll get into all of that, but we can't go anywhere without saying congratulations to the Ole Miss baseball team, head coach Mike Bianco, Coach Clement, Coach Lafferty, and that team for not scoring for 20 innings. And out comes the Stormtrooper hat. The Stormtrooper helmet gets put on, and the Rebels score 5. So I expect that the Stormtrooper headgear will be a part of this program moving forward. But all jokes aside, 5 runs in the ninth. They beat Florida, and nobody, if anybody said they saw this coming, they'd be telling you a bald-faced lie. Just came out of the blue, and the Rebels win, and it was a big win.
Had to have it.
Had to have it.
Scored 5 runs there. I think it was in the 9th inning. Judd Udemark, as he's done so many times in his Ole Miss career, got Ole Miss started. And honestly, the warts are still there. Offensively, they got issues, and a lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense. Lineup construction or things of that nature you can kind of pick apart. But ultimately, the across-the-board underperformance by returning guys and also players such as Dom Decker, it raises some real concerns about the long-term viability of this team this season as an NCAA tournament contender. But as far as what they needed to get done, yeah, sweep, you can get greedy and say, man, get the whole thing. But just to backdoor or to come back in the 9th, to pull that off, to be ranked today back in the top 25 according to Division I baseball, at the end of the day, you got done what you needed to get done. And Ole Miss is because you lose that series looking at the schedule and looking at how things have been going, the trend lines, it'd be hard to have a lot of confidence. So that was a 9th inning that not just Mike Clement and that offense and everyone involved with Ole Miss baseball needed, but as far as the resume, it just drastically changes things. I mean, 4-8 and 5-7 are very different. Like I said, now ranked again in Division I baseball as top 25. Had to kind of keep that pace, especially with what's coming. Doesn't change the fact that they got a lot of things to figure out. The pitching's there. The pitching's been so good, especially the last couple of weeks, even with all the struggles that Ole Miss has dealt with. I was looking at some numbers. Hold on one second. 4 runs Thursday, 2 runs Friday, 2 runs Saturday. Yeah, they probably need to win 11 of their next 19 to get to 15-15 in the SEC to host and all those kind of things. Bottom line is it's there. And it wasn't there for about 8.5 innings, right? I mean, it wasn't there. But good on Ole Miss. Good for them to get that rally. Now, can you fix your long-term issues? Can you kind of get back going in a way that allows you to build some momentum? All that kind of stuff we can deal with it another time. They beat Florida, took that series at Florida, absolutely had to have it. So it's the right place to start. That was, I think it shocked everybody. Like, you hadn't scored in 20 innings. Show no
Ben,
real.
I'll say this, and this is the type of stuff you can get at the Ole Miss Spirit that's an affiliate of On3 That's omspirit.com. That QR code right above Ben's head will get you all the content. And Jake Thompson, who does a great job covering everything Ole Miss, put this out on the board after the game. And no surprise, Jake's on top of it. And I'm just going to quote you exactly what Jake posted. With the series win, Ole Miss moves up to number 8 in the RPI and now 8 and 9 in quad 1 games. Only Alabama with 10 and Texas with 9 currently has more Q1 wins than the Rebels. That's big time. And obviously it's a long way to go, as Jake points out. But there's been a lot of things that have left you scratching your head leaving the ballpark. But at the end of the day, it's about wins and losses. And from that standpoint, at number 8 in the RPI is exactly the type of stuff you want heading into selection Monday when things roll around. And like Ben said, there are a certain number you need to get to be in that hosting conversation. That's what this is all about. You want to host in Oxford, you want to give yourself a chance to make it to the College World Series. And here's the thing, and people don't like to hear this, but when you get to that game and you got the opportunity and you host and all of a sudden it's a clear slate, really doesn't matter what happened on a random Friday night against Alabama or what happened against a Saturday against State. At the end of the day, when you get in that regional and you can host, that's when you have a clean slate. And it takes games like the Saturday game against Florida to kind of wash your hands of some of the terribleness that's happened over the last couple of games. And it's really, you just kind of scratch your head too. This team is so frustrating sometimes. And it just, when you see how poor they are at the plate and how, they just can't do anything. And what's really, really sad, Ben, is that Cade Townsend, my goodness, pitches so well and gets no production whatsoever. And then all of a sudden there at the end of the game, obviously they win. But had that not happened in the ninth, that is just a disservice to someone like a Cade Townsend. And not to mention, Ole Miss has had some really good pitching performances over the last couple of weeks, and they've got some losses to show for it. So you really hope the hitting comes around, and you really hope this is kind of things to come. We felt like the previous series when the Rebels were able to get some wins prior to Mississippi State, they kind of found some offense, and obviously they kind of fell apart at home against Mississippi State. And then you felt like your best shot against the Bulldogs were to get that Friday night game. When they didn't get that, when they got swept, it sounded like thinking down the road, it's just, wow, wins are going to be hard to come by, especially against a really good Florida team on the road. But here comes Mike Bianco. Here comes this team. Now you get an LSU team that had to fought and claw themselves. It took, I think, 10, 12, 13 innings yesterday against Tennessee before LSU would really mount a huge inning there late in the game and then win the game going away, I think 16-6. But that game was tied 6-6. Tennessee had that lead 6-5 going into the ninth when LSU would tie the game. So a very gettable series for Ole Miss if they can produce from the plate. There's no doubt about it.
If you have hopes and designs to be a regional host again, you have to have these moments like you had this weekend where you don't see it necessarily coming and everyone's ready to just pile on what have been the issues all year, which is completely not normal. But that's the type of turnaround and stealing of a win that can just do wonders for the psyche, and not just for the coaches and players, but also for the fans as well. They needed that reprieve, and they needed a series win in Gainesville. And to get that series win, we've already touched on why it's so important. The schedule doesn't get any easier. There are still question marks. And for me, the lineup construction is one of the biggest ones. But I think they have – I want to commend Mike for making a move that is very un-Mike-like. I like what he did putting Judd Udemark and Tristan Bissetta 1 and 2. Yeah. I like that at the top of the lineup. I'm not a big traditionalist when it comes to lineup construction. I believe very simply you give your best hitters the most at bats of anybody else in your lineup. Judd Udemark's only leading off a game once every single game, and that's to start the game. Stack those two guys, but while I commend him for that, there are some questions about who else, like how you're managing some matchups, some left rights, all that kind of stuff. The guys that you give long leashes to, especially compared to other players who might have higher upside. There are still questions like that, but you can see where Mike's really trying to do things a little bit differently or go for things that he otherwise wouldn't go for, which tells me there is an urgency, there is an understanding that this isn't the way it's supposed to be. It ain't supposed to look like this so far. And while it's easier to say off of a win, yes, it was good to see them get a reward off of trying something. Like Judd's the one that got that rally started, and had not been for him leading off Ole Miss's lineup, he wouldn't be the one that would have sparked that, right? Because of where he was hitting and because of the amount of it's very simple. Give the first your best two hitters 1 and 2 spots and let them go. The real revelation for me has been Taylor Rabe, who you're seeing on your screen right now. Man, what an incredible emergence he has provided for Ole Miss baseball, allowing them to keep Hunter Elliott, to keep to keep their staff in general, Townsend on schedule, because how good he's been. And honestly, you might see them try that a little bit more, starting out with Taylor Rabe, and then rolling into Hunter Elliott and Cade Townsend. We'll see, but man, he's so far, as Ole Miss continues to push here to be a regional host, he is so far one of Ole Miss's MVPs. Ole Miss baseball gets off the schneid, wins a big series it absolutely had to have. Townsend and Elliott are our only reliable arms. I would say Taylor Rabe is one of them. I'm going to push back a little bit on that. Yeah. I would say Taylor Rabe is absolutely as well. Walker Hooks has done some great things. There's some real arms that have emerged for Ole Miss, and they still haven't used all the arms at their disposal. Man, I'm still waiting to see what's going on with Marco Cipolla. But more and more, the warts are still there. The issues are still there. We'll see what it looks like with a refreshed offense. But at the end of the day, Ole Miss got the series win it absolutely had to have. Connor O'Gara joins us now here on Talk of Champions. Hey, Connor, how you doing, brother?
Doing well, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
We are living the dream. Thank you for joining us. I'm looking at all the stuff in your background there. What's the helmet of? What's that? What's the helmet?
If you can guess what that helmet is, Lord knows you're more of a sicko than I am. That is a honey baked ham helmet in the background. Yeah. What? They sent me a swag bag one time and I was like,
fantastic.
I'm going to display that. I have a Chicago Bears autograph helmet that's below that. I moved it at the beginning of last year and it changed up the vibe so well with the Bears that I'm like, I got to keep that low. I can't show that so prominently.
Yeah.
So that's why I display honey baked ham so prominently. I'm not a partner. I would love to be a partner. But yeah, not many people have this too. Like you always kind of squint trying to figure out like, yeah, dude has a helmet of ham, whatever.
Yeah, see, like I have a Memphis Maniacs helmet that I'm going to get put back here at some point for the old XFL. You know what I mean? But, well, I thought that was a real pull and a real good thing that I kept most all of my life because I got it when they were playing in the Liberty Bowl in the old days. My man came on here with a honey baked ham helmet, y'all. I don't know how you top that. I don't know how you beat that. I don't even know how you get one of those. So, Connor, to start off, buddy, you won. You won the whole swag behind you thing with that one thing. I mean, like the sit behind Brad and my junk and the Riverland roofing. That's great. Dang. Honey baked ham on a helmet. I've never seen such. Thank you for joining us, man. Right now, what are you most like paying attention to, keeping up with in the SEC, spring football, all these kind of things? What's most got your attention in the world of sport right now?
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys having me. I do think that if we're talking about the SEC, I think the new coaches are fascinating. I mean, it's unprecedented to have 6 new head coaches in the conference and seeing what that looks like, knowing that there is this new wave. All of a sudden, the oldest coach in the SEC is Brent Venables, the guy who just does stadiums in his free time, which is such a weird thing to process. Like, it is just not something that we typically talk about. And after a year in which we had no offseason moves in the coaching world with the SEC, like we're seeing all of these new faces. Who is going to quickly turn things around? What's it going to look like at Florida with John Summerall, who looks like he continues to be handed a sheet every single day that says, here's what you do to make yourself not look like Billy Napier. And he follows that to a T. Credit to him. But I'm fascinated to see that. Fascinated to see Alex Golesh, of course, at Auburn, someone that I have great respect for, who I've been able to have on my show a few times, and what he's trying to do at Auburn, very unique situation there. And then, of course, in your neck of the woods, Pete Golding 2.0, 1.5. What do you guys want to something like that? But just seeing how he does, knowing that there is going to be a lot of eyeballs on him. Ole Miss is very much trying to win the breakup this year, and how does he handle all of these dynamics with what I think should be a preseason top 10 team, and a team that was 20 seconds away from getting to a national championship last year.
Connor, thanks very much for joining us. By the way, if you don't watch the OG kickoff, you're missing out. Also, part of the Next Round Live crew, and we all know about the Next Round Live that is originated out of Alabama. Connor's got his ear to the ground on a lot of things SEC. And be sure and follow him on Twitter/X at CJ O'Gara. Connor, I want to start with this. There was news that broke out of the president's office about NIL, about structure of transfer portal, and all that in between. Your kind of overall thoughts of what came out of the executive office, and if that does have legs. I did find it interesting that what would follow, Greg Sankey, along with the Big Ten, the ACC, all of these different advisory bodies of college football starts reposting their support for this. Is there traction there?
I don't know that there's legitimate traction. I need to see what it actually looks like if these cases get to court, and if there is someone who says, well, I'm going to challenge the 5 and 5 years model, and I'm going to be able to push back on this. I need to see what it looks like, because as you guys know, state courts still have a lot of pull. They still have a lot of say in all of these things. And with a revenue structure that is still one of one, that Congress has pushed back on. They have pushed back on the NCAA and said, no, you are not allowed to operate in this day and age. That's been more pro player than I think the federal government has acknowledged. And so I need to see what it actually looks like if that indeed happens, and what it looks like in the courts, because as of right now, everybody knows there's just so many different ways to wiggle out of this. It's not to say that every case can, because we saw, a Chandler Morris, we saw a Joey Aguilar. Those guys didn't get the ruling that Trinidad Chambliss did. Different situations, of course. Every situation is so unique. And to have this overall blanket that goes into it, I think it's going to be really, really tough to cover everything. Now, I applaud people for being willing to say, like, look, let's just be bipartisan about all of this, and let's just kind of get everything in place. The irony, of course, is that the coaches are the ones who want this, and the coaches are the ones that are responsible for this dynamic existing in the first place, because so many of them have gone to bat for their guys and trying to find ways to wiggle around the system. So it sounds like there are still so many moving parts. And until I see every one of those parts going in the same direction, I can't assume that any one piece of legislation is going to make that difference.
Looking at Ole Miss specifically, and now that the ruling resolved, we think for the most part with quarterback Trinidad, a very detailed conversation yesterday with someone that's very close to the Arkansas program. And you're the perfect person to ask this, because Ben and I are so close to the program in Oxford. I think it's a great question for you that you kind of cover the entire conference. If you look at Ole Miss, and you were to say that a majority of its offensive production from a coaching standpoint, being Lane Kiffin, being Charlie Weiss Jr. out the door, a new head coach of the defensive variety, and then you look at the schedule being different, being more difficult than last year. What makes you think that Ole Miss is going to be as good as they could be last year? Because what was posed to me, a 10,000 feet view, with all of that changes offensively, even though there's some personnel returning, they were like, I can't see how Ole Miss can be that elite this year with Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. out the door. What are your thoughts on Ole Miss from a coaching standpoint and what they're returning there, also from a player standpoint?
I hate any argument that says Ole Miss is just about to fall off the face of the earth, because last I checked, in the college football playoff, with extra rest that Kirby Smart had to be able to prepare for Ole Miss, they beat Georgia. They beat the SEC champs. They beat the team that dominated in the SEC championship. And yes, they still had Charlie Weiss Jr. But to me, I don't think you can look at those dynamics and say without a doubt, oh my gosh, like that's going to be the difference in 4 wins. John David Baker spent 3 years on that staff. He is an accomplished offensive coordinator who got to see every one of those reps that Trinidad Chambliss took in the postseason. Do you think that guy's going to make him reinvent the wheel? Because, yes, I know that Lane Kiffin and Charlie West Jr., him being in the ear of Trinidad Chambliss up until 15 seconds left on the play clock, whatever it is, I know that makes a difference. I know that absolutely does. But I also think that Trinidad Chambliss has shown what he does after those moments is worth having confidence in. That guy, when the play breaks down, when bullets are flying, I want him. I want him on my team. I think he's the best returning quarterback in all of college football. Do I think he's the only thing that matters with this Ole Miss team? No, I don't. I think having a lot of experience coming back on that offensive line matters. I think having maybe the best returning running back in the sport in Q on Lacey, I think that matters. I think having a lot of those key pieces back on defense, albeit without Uman Mielen, albeit without Daughtery, late additions to the portal going to LSU, that stings a little bit. They should still be really good defensively. I think Ole Miss deserves to start as a preseason top 5 team. And that might be considered bold. And a lot of people might just say, you know what? You just can't do that anymore in a post-Lane Kiffin world. If this is 3 years removed from that, okay, maybe let's have that conversation. But so many of those pieces are still in place. And I saw too many good things out of Pete Golding as a head coach, as a leader of men, to make me think that guy is capable of being a very formidable foe this year for everyone in the SEC. And Lord knows if Ole Miss gets to an SEC championship for the very first time in program history this year, I think we'll look back and say, dang, why didn't we just buy into what we saw throughout the college football playoff?
Connor O'Gara joining us. Be sure if you don't follow him on X, you need to, at CG O'Gara. That's when you can watch the OG Kickoff, a part of the Next Round Live family of networks. Connor, looking at that game against Louisville on Sunday, September the 6th in Nashville, what's the first thing you're going to be looking for when Ole Miss and Louisville kick off in Nashville? From an Ole Miss standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's the comfortability of Trinidad Chambliss, because I think that you're going to look on the other side of the ball and you'll see Jeff Brom. His quarterbacks always just seem comfortable. It's kind of like a lower profile version of what Lane Kiffin does. I'm not saying it's schematically the same exact thing or anything, but his quarterbacks always just kind of feel comfortable and feel like they're in control. And I'm fascinated to see what it looks like with Trinidad Chambliss. And how does it look like knowing that he's got so many of these new receivers that are stepping in? Does it feel like he's on the same page with all of them? And does Ole Miss feel like this team that, man, you just trust that opening script, you know that it's going to be able to work, and they're going to be kind of off to the races in non-conference play? I think that's worth watching. And also, does this defense take a step forward? It had too many missed tackles last year. Those missed tackles cost them it really did cost them a chance to be able to play for a national championship. And is that an area that has improved year over year? Knowing that Pete Golding, the guy who ran that defense, now has more of these obligations, and you're not going to be sitting there breaking down tackling in the same way that you could if you're a defensive coordinator, being able to assess those weaknesses. So all of that is factored into what I think will be a very conservative national outlook for Ole Miss. I think people will be too low on them. I will be higher on them than consensus. And if they get off to a slow start against Louisville or something like that, Lord knows there will be people that kind of say, hey, this is the Lane Kiffin difference. But I think we're past that. And I think there are too many positives working in their favor.
Connor, if chalk prevails and Ole Miss is 2-0 headed into Saturday, September 19th against LSU, who knows what either one of those teams will be ranked at that point. They'll be incredibly high. And not necessarily just of the shenanigans and fireworks surrounding that. Does it benefit Ole Miss or LSU more that game is the first conference game for Ole Miss? I'm not sure if it is for LSU, but I know it is for Ole Miss. Who does it benefit more in your opinion?
I think Ole Miss. I think LSU's got so many new pieces to work in. I mean, I'm not sure if you guys have heard or ever discussed Lane Kiffin as the portal king, but they are very heavily reliant on a lot of these portal pieces working immediately. And going on the road with all of those new pieces is going to be a question mark. We think Sam Leavitt will be healthy. Do we know that with certainty? We need to see how it plays out. What does it look like on the road in an SEC atmosphere? Because last I checked, when that guy came into the state of Mississippi, it didn't go particularly well last time when they lost that game when he was with Arizona State, when they lost at Mississippi State, and he was kind of a shell of himself. So I do think that there will be more pressure on LSU for all the obvious reasons as well, with Kiffin and trying to win the breakup. And it's going to be hostile territory. Like, guys, I think this is truly the best SEC football game, or at least the most anticipated hostile SEC football game since 2013, Johnny Manziel hosting Alabama in that rematch.
Wow.
And you could say, what about Ole Miss and Tennessee, that game in 2021? We just actually did And it just meant more a rewatch of that game on the OG kickoff, looking back on that game in 2021 in different circumstances because it was year one Tennessee. These are two teams that could very well start off in the top 10 that have SEC national championship aspirations. And I think that game is going to be so highly anticipated. I cannot wait for it. And I love the fact that we will see that so early on in the season.
My question, Connor, is this is not the first time so far that you've mentioned winning the breakup and all those kind of things. What is your assessment of how these two programs, how these two coaches have handled the breakup? And if you had to handicap the whole winning the breakup standpoint, like what's your assessment and how this has all kind of played out, how it continues to play out, and just where are things in what will make that September 19th game so incredibly interesting, but also borderline toxic, dude. I mean, it has the potential to be an absolute cluster.
It really does. If you don't think just different is a teeny tiny subtle dig at Ole Miss, I don't think you're paying attention. I really do think there's something laced in that statement that Lane Kiffin has said since his opening press conference at LSU that just lets you know, hey, I think that what I just walked into is kind of one of one. And that's going to put Ole Miss in the group with everyone else. So that's all going to fuel what's going to be just an electric atmosphere at Vaught Hemingway. And I do think that there are a lot of people that can say right now, Ole Miss is leading the breakup. 20 seconds away from a national championship is leading the breakup. If Ole Miss even has a close game against Tulane and then it's a loss against Georgia, Lane Kiffin is leading the breakup. That did not happen. And so for my money, Ole Miss has a clear advantage. Now, if Lane goes into Oxford, wins that game, has what I would call a Toby Keith victory, a how do you like me now win. I think that changed, trademark pending. I think that there is going to be a real conversation about like, man, this is why he signed up for this. And this is why he's leaning into all of this. And I can't wait to see how that plays out. But Ole Miss is currently winning the breakup. They will lose the breakup if this program falls off the face of the earth. And I don't know that you could just say that it's a 1-year deal, but go study the Lincoln Riley, Oklahoma dynamics if you want to study in how to win the breakup.
Connor, looking at Ole Miss, and someone just asked a question about the first four, and thank you, Ole Memes. I want to ask Connor that myself. If you look at the first four games, obviously we talked about Louisville and what that presents. Ole Miss is currently an 8.5-point favorite heading into that game right now, according to FanDuel. Then you've got Charlotte at home, LSU, and then at Florida. If Ole Miss could start off 4-0, I think that puts them in a really good position to be incredibly successful next year. The games, obviously, that people are going to be looking at, obviously, you've got at Vanderbilt, Missouri, a program that Ole Miss is going to face with its former quarterback, Austin Simmons, along with Caden Lee. Then you're at Texas against Arch Manning, and then you've got Georgia at home, at Oklahoma. The schedule is much more difficult. What are you kind of looking at, kind of overarching about Ole Miss, where you think this team, maybe from a ceiling standpoint, maybe to a floor standpoint in a record capacity?
I think ceiling is 11-1. I think ceiling is 11-1 in getting to Atlanta. I really do. And I agree. I think that Florida game is going to be overlooked. I think that's a huge, huge game that's going to let us know how ready this team is. Florida right now is number 1 in the country in percentage of returning defensive production, the great metric that Bill Connolly puts together every single year. That is with John Summerall and Brad White running that defense. That's not nothing. There's definitely something that was left in the cupboard in Gainesville with the talent that they have and the talent that they were able to bring in. Having said that, if you look at historically the Brad White defense at Kentucky, it's kind of struggled against offenses that are run in the way that Ole Miss likes to operate. We kind of saw that a bit last year, even a game in which Austin Simmons struggled out of the gate and Ole Miss was still able to kind of figure some things out. So I bring that up because that's a game that we could probably, if we're looking at championship contenders, we're not going to look at that as like, oh my God, that's going to change you. We would have said last year with Texas, you know what, that game at Florida, maybe that's going to be a little bit juicy, but if Texas is going to be really national championship worthy, they're going to win that game kind of with ease. And I was there that day in the Swamp. I saw what that atmosphere was. and how much it made a difference on a starting quarterback, and knowing that that defense, once it was pinning its ears back, was able to get after Arch Manning. And it's a different defense, no doubt about it. But I think that's a huge early test, especially for John David Baker, what it looks like for him as a play caller, trying to make sure that he is on that same page with Trinidad Chambliss and what you could do in a hostile atmosphere, because it'll be a different dynamic than what is all the juice going into that LSU game. But you need to be able to win games like that on the road in the SEC if you're going to compete for a conference championship, which Ole Miss has not been able to do, of course. So I think that's one to circle. That's going to really let us know. That'll be a nice barometer for how this Ole Miss season is going to shake out.
This is Talk of Champions. I'm Ben Garrett at Spirit Ben on Twitter. He's Brad Logan at Brad Logan COTE. I'm almost there, Brad, to remembering it every single time. I'm getting there. Connor O'Gara's here with us from Saturday Down South. He also hosts the OG kickoff show for the Next Round Live. You mentioned Auburn earlier. I agree with you about the Florida game. That's one that for me, I keep looking down the schedule and I get stopped there because I don't know who they are. But I do know that I have a lot of confidence in John Sumrall. I do. I mean, I love Buster Faulkner as OC. I mean, there's a lot to like about what Florida is building. And like you said, John Sumrall making it very crystal clear. He is the anti-Billy Napier. That's more what he's got to sell more than anything. But one game that I think Ole Miss fan 198824 is absolutely right on, the trap game being potentially Auburn. I really like the fit with Alex Golesh. You've touched on this already, what they're going to look like. Byron Brown following him from USF. What should Ole Miss fans or just fans in general think about what Auburn could be? Because I think they could be a little bit stronger, and you're one than most anybody's even given credit for. They could be a real sleeper here, as far as not necessarily being a championship contender, but certainly one that nobody's going to want to play on a week in, week out basis.
Yeah, and just for the record, by the way, formerly of Saturday Down South, no longer with Saturday Down South. You're good.
Thank you. Thank you.
I actually start, like, sometimes when I start the OG kickoff, I'll like say, hey, what's going on? This is Connor Garrett, Saturday Down South podcast. And I'm like, oh, wait, no, I got to stop. When you're there for 10 and a half years, it just kind of rolls off the tongue. Yeah, exactly.
Been there.
I think Auburn is hoping to be, this is something that Lane Kiffin was year one at Ole Miss and back in 2020, just a weird start to his tenure because of the COVID season, all that different stuff. Auburn's goal this year should be points and vibes. There are a lot of programs across college football that if you just have points and vibes in year one, it sets the stage. 2021 Tennessee with Josh Heupel, great example of that. I think if you look at Oklahoma State this year and the offense that they inherit with Eric Morris coming over from North Texas, that's another team, just like points and vibes. Auburn is trying to establish that after Hugh Freeze was anything but points and vibes. And doing so with Byron Brown at quarterback is going to test this Ole Miss defense, because what does he do particularly well? He breaks tackles. 3,000 passing yards over 1,000 rushing yards last year. He breaks tackles in space. Now, what he has struggled with is when he is throwing under pressure. Those are the moments in which, for a quarterback that's as mobile as he is, that can be a place where you kind of get him in some tough spots. What does it look like with his transition into the SEC, which is going to have tougher defenses than what he faced in the American? This is an extremely accomplished quarterback who's obviously got 3 years in that system, and they're going to lean heavily on that. But their defense is no joke too. Like that's also going to be a really tough test. Like Ole Miss did not have, or Auburn rather did not have the defense last year that the record would have suggested. And by being able to return DJ Durkin and some of those key pieces with Adkins in the middle of it, I think they're one of these units that could be like one of the top 3 or top 4 defenses in the SEC. So it's a tricky spot. It's another one of those games where you're like, man, if they turn things around year one, like who's to say that that's just a gimme game on the schedule? Auburn could very much push Ole Miss.
One of the last things too, from me, I know Brad's got way more. The SEC championship game came out last week. It's on its way out. I mean, what do you think about the SEC championship game, its future? I think that like transitioning it to like a premier kickoff, SEC kickoff, is the way to go to start the year. Just championship games, and with the playoffs and the advent of the playoffs and inevitable expansion, all those kind of things. What do you make of the change or impending change that will come with the SEC championship game?
I need to see the changes actually happen before I'm willing to say the SEC championship is obsolete. I don't think we're there yet. And I know why Greg Byrne comes out and says that, because not sure if you guys have heard this, but nobody has won more SEC championships than Alabama. And getting there, like, it doesn't move the needle for them in the same way that it does others. But
Mhm.
think of how it would have impacted some of these Ole Miss seasons if they had won an SEC title. Like, the playoff is a bit of a crapshoot now. It just kind of is. And if it's expanding, then we're basically saying, hey, everything's all about the playoff. Regular season matters less. I get all of that. I still think that winning the SEC championship should carry significance. And we have not seen yet it hurt SEC teams. Now, if some want to say like, oh, it hurt Georgia these last 2 years by winning the SEC championship and they weren't ready to play in the college football playoff 3 weeks after that. Like, I don't know. I think that's connecting too many dots. For my money, I still think it matters, and it matters in the eyes of the selection committee. You have a chance to be able to help yourself out. There have been more instances, historically speaking, in which the SEC champion has benefited from being able to win that game and set themselves up in either the BCS era or the college football playoff era. So I realize that the sport is changing. The playoff is likely expanding again. I kind of want to see what it looks like first. And I know that the SEC has always done its postseason and its conference schedule with the championship and the playoff structure in mind, but I would not want to be first on that. I would not want to be first and be idle and all of a sudden like nobody's canceled their conference championships, but the SEC did because they said, oh, you can't play 17 games anymore. Once upon a time, you could only play 12 games, and that was considered the max. So I'm not there yet in the way that Greg Byrne is. It's not to say that the SEC championship will always carry significance. I think it carries less significance than it once did. We can all say that, but there's still value in it. And I'm not one to just necessarily want to sit here and abolish it.
Connor O'Gara, who does a great job covering the SEC and all things college football. You can catch him on the OG Kickoff. That's on YouTube and also part of the Next Round Live family. Connor, kind of following up on Ben's question. Number one, would it be advantageous for the SEC? Because when you start talking about teams like last year, Ole Miss, in Georgia in years past, in Alabama, we don't want to play in the conference championship game. I think, to me, that says a lot about the future of that game. I think one thing we could do as a collective world of college football in the SEC, the top two, going into every season, the top two teams from the previous season meet in Atlanta for the SEC Kickoff Classic. That's something that could be done, I think, down the road. Your thoughts on that? Second, kind of follow up to that. How far are we, in your educated opinion, from the SEC, the Big Ten, and then insert other conference here, from a solid break from the NCAA and creating their own conference?
Yeah, I think we're close to that. Like, I think we're all acknowledging that the NCAA has less power than ever over college football, and doing their own thing with the College Sports Commission, the way that it's happened over the course of the last year, was supposed to be kind of a piece of that. But it feels like once we have some sort of collective bargaining and once there are these unions, that we will be at that place, and it will ultimately, the NCAA will be not necessarily a part of college football anymore. TBD on how all of that goes. It still feels like they're a ways away from that being able to happen. But like, I don't know. The idea of these SEC teams who won the championship the previous year starting off by having a matchup against each other is very NFL like, right? Like that's kind of like been the model of why they can do that. They can do that because NFL schedules are seen as, okay, that's just widely accepted, that if you have a really good season, your schedule is going to be more difficult next year. In college football, the pushback on that would be, well, wait a minute, why are we being punished for having such a good season last year? And then you would have coaches that are saying, well, I still don't want to play on that if it means having to play Georgia again to kick off next season, when I thought we were going to miss them during this stretch. So you're going to get pushback kind of on everything. It's not to say like that's a bad idea by any stretch of the imagination, but I just think that there would probably be too many people going, well, then why are we, then what's the point of having this game? And why do we have to add it? Is it going to be an additional game? Is it just going to be week one? Then you're having to change future non-conference schedules, which Lord knows all these athletic directors love to schedule non-conference games 10 years, 15 years in advance for some crazy reason. So all this is messy because college football is messy. I don't know that there's a perfect solution the way that it's structured right now. I like the creativity of that, though. I mean, I would love to see it. It would be great to start off the year like that and just boom, we're right into conference play. We're seeing these two teams that met at the end of last year. Like, from a fan perspective, I'm fully on board with that. I think coaches find a way to find the flaw in everything. They'd probably try and find the flaw in that too.
Greg Sankey has made a lot of great decisions, and he hasn't had a lot of pushback on very many decisions for the most part during his tenure. It feels like he's always has the best interest of the SEC. We could argue those decisions from a national perspective in the world of college football and that sort of thing. But I think just from an SEC standpoint, he always has the SEC for the most part at the best interest of his decisions. The one decision I kind of scratched my head was the 9-game conference schedule. It just feels like that's just an additional game that you have to, number one, you take away from some of the rivalries of non-conference that some of these SEC teams have had, but also it adds another element of another difficult game. What are your thoughts on immediately going to that 9-game schedule? And you think that was a good move down the road?
Was it immediately though? Because Lord knows the Big Ten has been trying to hang this over the SEC forever. It was a compromise. And I thought by giving in with the 9-game conference schedule and Greg Sankey being able to sell to his presidents, his athletic directors, which that's ultimately who Greg Sankey works for, he could say, I am increasing your in-game season ticket packages. And that is still of great value in this day and age with how much football is relied on. So I'm helping you there. I'm helping the TV contracts by having this extra game in conference play. That's going to make our conference TV package more lucrative to be able to do that. And I'm hopefully going to give in here so that I don't have to give in with the 24-team playoff in the way that the Big Ten inexplicably continues to push for. But you're right. I mean, I think there is a part of you that looks at this and goes, well, the SEC has been so reluctant for so long now, where I think it'd be different if the SEC had these last 3 years where it continued its run of dominance. But instead, you've seen these last 3 years in which the SEC did not have the 9-game conference schedule. Okay, maybe it wasn't just a byproduct of that, of getting to the national championship. And you've seen the SEC go through what's been, in the 21st century at least, an unprecedented run of being left out of that national championship stage. So, yeah, I mean, it does feel like eventually the SEC was going to give into that at some point just because of I mean, it all comes down to money. It always does. But the Big Ten did this too early. The Big Ten made so much out of this back when it did this in 2016. And I said, guys, the Big Ten from 2016 to 2018, they watched their conference champion get left out of the college football playoff in all 3 of those years, right after they made the change to the 9-game conference schedule. That sucks. That's not something you should be taking pride in. And I would go to Big Ten media days and I would listen to coaches like James Franklin say, the SEC, they only play the 8-game conference schedule. We play the 9-game conference schedule. I'd be like, buddy, the SEC is winning national championships. You're not. What are you talking about? Get over it. Like, this might have benefited you from a TV standpoint, but there is certainly the drawback to it. And, time will tell if it's going to be, a move that was not worth the financial risk, that the SEC was willing to take.
If we're visiting next February and the college football season is behind us, kind of looking at 2 or 3 lower level teams over the last couple of years in the SEC, who's a team this year, Connor, that you think is going to take a pretty good step forward? Is there any one particular team or maybe 2 teams that you're excited to see this year from the lower end of the SEC projected teams this year?
I think Kentucky's got a really interesting 2-year runway. Really, really interesting with the moves that they've made in the transfer portal, knowing that Will Stein was so highly regarded as an offensive mind for working with 3 different quarterbacks at Oregon, and understanding that the Kenny Minchie move is probably going to determine a lot of that with the 2-year runway, and being able to poach him from Nebraska, who he had originally committed to out of the transfer portal after he did not win the job at Notre Dame. From CJ Carr ends up winning that battle. And I think Will Stein has all of a sudden a really favorable opportunity to build this thing up in a couple of years. It had gone stale with Mark Stoops. It definitely had. And you got to the point where you didn't really trust his evaluation on the offensive side of the ball. And if you can't evaluate talent on the offensive side of the ball, like, good luck in today's day and age. That's going to be really tough to be even a formidable team in the SEC. And I do think that Will Stein has some of those pieces in place. If you look at the way that they spent on offensive line, even in year 1, where like 3 of the top 5 offensive linemen in the portal end up going to Kentucky, which is just kind of like, whoa, you knew they were going to have to rebuild that area. But that's kind of why I look at them and go, they could look a lot different by the end of year one and going into year two with just kind of the vibes and kind of understanding what has held them back in previous years. And yes, there are going to be a lot of questions on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe they're just more of like I said, a points and vibes type team year one, but they're one of these like lower level teams that had kind of fallen off that I'm just circling going, I would not want to be discounting their ability to kind of take that next step. And I'm not saying that all of a sudden, like they're the next Indiana, they're going to be the next, he's the next Kurt Signetti or anything like that, but just want to kind of keep an eye on in the way that they build talent and what they establish with their foundation year one.
One final question for Connor O'Gara, who's kind enough to join us today. Follow him on X at CJ O'Gara. He's, of course, OG Kickoff. That's in partnership with the Next Round Live. Connor, if we're talking to you right now, and I got of water to pass under the bridge, who are the teams right now for next year's SEC championship game? Who are the teams you think are going to be playing in Atlanta?
We're just talking 2026, correct? I don't have to do 2027
That's
just
right,
yet?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
2026. I will put Texas in that spot. And I'll put Texas in that spot just because I think what they have offensively with Arch, even if you're not the biggest believer in Arch, I think you can look at those surroundings and say they are 100% better than what they were last year. Their offensive line should be better. Getting Cam Coleman, obviously pretty important. A couple of 1,000-yard backs at the power conference level that they were able to get out of the portal. Like, feel better about the surroundings for Arch in year two as a starter. And defensively, big question mark with Will Muschamp taking over that defense. But they did get a lot of experience out of the transfer portal. So interested to kind of see Texas. I think they do have that path. Man, I'm between Ole Miss and Georgia. I really am. I really am. Like, I don't think it's a given that Georgia is just championship level. I don't think it's a given that all of a sudden they get back to 2021, 2022 levels. And I like Gunnar Stockton a lot. Like, I have Gunnar Stockton almost in that same tier as Trinidad Chambliss. I think he's the second best returning quarterback in the SEC. I would take Gunnar Stockton over Arch Manning. Like, that might be considered a bold take. But I do think that there are going to be questions about this youth on defense that everybody expects to take the next step. Last year, Georgia was really, really young on the defensive side of the ball. They struggled with stop rate, something that Ole Miss kind of struggled with as well. And we're one of these teams that you're like, man, you just don't get off the field in the same way that you once did. And you allow these long drives. It just kind of takes a toll on you. And it's a lot less easier to predict what that group is going to look like. So they have a lot of talent there, of course. But I think we've kind of seen some chinks in the armor with Georgia's defense in recent memory. So that's kind of a cop-out answer. I wish I could just answer this question after I see that Florida game for Ole Miss. Like, if I could just kind of see what that looks like, that would make me feel that much better. But way too early prediction. You know what? I understand what airwaves I'm on. Let's break the tie with knowing who I'm speaking to. Let's go Ole Miss and Texas. Wouldn't that be a great game too, to kind of see how that would play out, to see Will Muschamp in this new look Texas defense going up against Trinidad Chambliss, who by that point of the year could be, very firmly in the Heisman Trophy discussion. I say that about a guy that finished 8th in the Heisman voting, but you guys get what I mean. And I think that Ole Miss will still have to obviously stay healthy on the defensive side of the ball. That's going to determine this, but way too early prediction. An Ole Miss Texas SEC championship. Would love to see it. Be here for it.
I'm just saying, like, the amount of Manning mania that would be involved with that would just be insufferable. You know that, right? Like, it would be oversaturating as much as possible. I mean, you're going to get Manning on Manning on Manning. I just hope that we get like Coop on the street, like a Cooper Manning on the street kind of deal, like we used to with the Dan Patrick Show. See, it's not honey baked ham, but it's pretty dope.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. That's a Memphis Maniacs, but I've always said I had the best mini helmet of anybody. And then Connor comes on here with honey baked ham in the background. I mean, how do you beat that? How do you beat that?
I need to get the Orlando. Is it the Orlando Renegades? Who was the XFL team? Yeah, I need to get that helmet with Jeff Brom playing quarterback, and then maybe Jeff Brom signs it and says, "Let's play football" or something like that. If I get that helmet up there, that's next.
Don't tease me with a good time. Next time you're on here, I want honey baked ham and the Orlando Renegades. I want all the things. Yeah. He's Connor O'Gara. He hosts the next round, or the OG Kickoff on the Next Round Live. Man, this was great stuff, dude. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks,
appreciate you. Please come back soon, and all the best to you, friend.
Gentlemen, appreciate it.
That's Connor O'Gara. Man, that was fire. That was absolute fire. He dove into all of them, man. You're talking about Kentucky. You're talking about Auburn. I'm with him on Kentucky now. Kentucky's a sleeper team in the SEC for me, and I like the framing it as a 2-year window for them because it had grown stale under Mark Stoops, and I love Will Stein and think he could be tremendous from the get-go. The hard thing for Kentucky will be holding on to Will Stein, in my opinion, because I think he's an absolute rising star in the coaching business. But, man, that was great stuff from Connor. Thanks to him for coming on. This is Talk of Champions. I'm Ben Garrett at SpiritBen on Twitter. He's Brad Logan at Brad Logan, COTE. If you haven't already, subscribe, rate, review Talk of Champions in iTunes. And when you do, no matter what you say, it could be criticism, it can be praise, it can be whatever it needs to be. Make sure it's a 5-star review in Spotify and Apple and all the other places where you can get your podcasts. If you would leave us a review, make sure it's a 5-star review. Go to the Ole Miss Spirit, that QR code right above Brad's head. Right now, new members can sign up for an annual sub for half off with our spring sale. So if you want spring football intel, the basketball portal opens tomorrow. Want to touch on some basketball stuff before we get out of here. Baseball winning the series in Gainesville, staying on track for a regional host, potentially going back into the top 25 because of that series win. Everything, all of those things can be found at the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, affiliate of On 3. Just scan that QR code above Brad's head and join us all day, every day. We're talking about this stuff, the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, affiliate of On 3. Brad has disappeared for a bit. I do like this. Ole Miss fan 198824 says Missouri is a sleeper too, in my opinion. I could see that. I could see that with Austin Simmons and Caden Lee. That's another one of those because I appreciate what Connor was talking about in regards to the swing potential or the swing nature of the Florida game for Ole Miss, because Florida could be improved. You're going on the road again. This is a team that could really give Ole Miss fits early on. Missouri is one of those as well. They come into town in October with your former quarterback. Obviously, they'll be motivated to get that at home. But good teams that are coming off a national championship push, winning a program record 13 games, those are games you're supposed to win. But it will be a test early on to see how formidable this Ole Miss team could potentially be. But I will say, so far through spring football, and we get our second viewing availability tomorrow, Tuesday, April 7th, the same day that the portal opens, the one and only portal window opens for basketball. Like defensively, from what we've seen so far and what we've heard so far, they seem to be a really improved at all three levels, specifically at linebacker. TJ Dotter was Ole Miss's leading tackler last year, but they added two guys who are similar profile, if not more accomplished in their own right, in Luke Farrelly and Keaton Thomas in the back end. 5 defensive back transfers, including Jonel Aguero from Georgia, Edwin Joseph from Florida State. I heard some early good things from Sharif Denson as a move piece in the secondary, and don't sleep on returning guys like Ladarian Clardy, who I think has the potential to have a real breakout year this year for Ole Miss. So great stuff from Connor. So thankful that he came on. The basketball portal opens tomorrow. I'm sure that some of y'all saw this on the Ole Miss Spirit, probably on Twitter as well. But some staff movement potentially for Chris Beard. Wes Flanagan, according to John Rothstein, is headed to Georgia Tech to become an assistant under Scott Connor. Meanwhile, Al Pinkins, according to the portal scoop, is in talks to join NC State. I noted that in the story I wrote about the portal for the Ole Miss Spirit last night, but more and more I'm hearing that the Al Pinkins piece, I'm not putting a lot of stock in that right now. I was told, quite frankly, that Patton and Al aren't going anywhere this morning. So we'll see. But obviously that came from somewhere, probably because Al and the new head coach at NC State that came over from Tennessee, former teammates together. They've got a long history together. It's an easy connection to make. But I was told that Patton Pinkins is the future of this program still, and there's no expectations that he's going anywhere. So we'll see what happens. But when the portal opens up tomorrow, there'll be a lot of names that you'll hear Ole Miss in connection to. A lot of those names in the story that is on the front page of the Ole Miss Spirit right now, OleMissSpirit.com, affiliate of On 3, that QR code on your screen. But what does Ole Miss need to get done in this portal to really turn things around and build a contender back from a disappointing 15 and 20 year last year, Brad? You got Elias Carmerdine coming back. You assume Patton Pinkins is coming back. Al Pinkins hanging around despite some interest from NC State and others to leave Chris Beard's staff. What are you expecting as far as activity and what Ole Miss will be pursuing once the portal opens up tomorrow?
There'll be a ton of activity, and the good news is you have Walker Jones and the Grove Collective in the corner of Ole Miss head coach Chris Beard. And I think the good news is, as we heard in that press availability, which, by the way, we have efforted Chris Beard for this program, and we were told that there would be a media availability for a group upcoming. That has not happened yet. So once we have that information, we will. I know everybody wants to talk to him, And I know everybody has asked me about that, so we're efforting Coach. But I do think with having, hearing from Coach Beard at the end of the season that he was excited about moving forward, excited about the next year. So that's good from an Ole Miss standpoint. But I think having that relationship with the Grove Collective, but I think, Ben, you can start breaking down the different positions that Ole Miss needs, and then you start asking yourself, who from the roster that's available would you like to keep on the roster? And obviously, Elias Carmodine is one that you've already got in the boat. I think Patton Pinkins is someone you could definitely kind of center this team around, both from on and off the floor perspective of his leadership capabilities. Obviously, I think a big man and a shooter are two things that Ole Miss is in dire need of. And just some misevaluations from last year, I think, did not have this team playing that as well as it did at the end of the season. So the question is can you kind of replicate what happened in the SEC tournament and turn that over into kind of a quasi-new roster heading into the season this year? So obviously a lot of pieces that need to be implemented, but having that relationship with the Grove Collective and knowing that there is a body of people that are going to support you from a financial standpoint, because that's kind of what it's about now, I think just bodes very well for Chris Beard and his staff.
Fred G. Rebs 223. Will there be a football practice this evening? Or are you guys going to report? There's one this morning, mid-morning, afternoon, and yes, whatever we get from that in terms of rumblings, talking to coaches, we will report at the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, and affiliate of On3, that QR code above Brad said. So thankful to everyone who sponsors this show, including Riverland Roofing, B&A Bank, Tannehill Carmen LLC. There's so many. C-Spire. We're going to hear from a few of them now. This is Talk of Champions, powered by C-Spire, Riverland Roofing, and a host of others.
Bye, babe. Let's get to work.
Advanced technology to accelerate business growth. There's more to see.
Start my weekend.
C-Spire. Customer inspired.
Contact C-Spire today for all of your advanced technology solution needs for home and businesses. C-Spire, customer inspired. We're also powered by Riverland Roofing, 662-644-4297, riverlandroofing.com.
Protecting homes and businesses from the whims of nature. You need more than just quality materials. You require Riverland Roofing. Licensed, insured, and certified, Riverland Roofing offers not only the assurance of excellence, but a tailored approach to your unique structural needs and budget. To learn more about what Riverland Roofing can do for you and the community, call them at 662-644-4297 or visit riverlandroofing.com.
Thanks to the Hearn Law Firm, 662-766-7777, hearnlawfirm.net. And Brad was live from Game Day Haircuts on Friday. It was a lot of fun. I need a haircut in the worst kind of way. And if you need one too, they're the only place to go. It's Game Day Haircuts of Oxford, located at 1735A University Avenue.
I'm Warrior Philip Hearn. Raising my family here in Mississippi, I've tried to teach my kids to help others. I learned that from my parents. And as a Mississippi lawyer, I want to help you too. If you're hurt in a traffic accident, 18-wheeler wreck, or have insurance trouble, call 601-720-3541. That's my cell. You call, I'll answer. Let's get started. Make your first call to the Hearn Law Firm today.
This is Talk of Champions. I'm Ben Garrett. He's Brad Logan. One thing that the chat at least thinks Ole Miss absolutely needs to be landing from at Ole Memes, we need a legit quick playmaking point guard. Patton and Elias are really shooting guards, in my opinion. I don't disagree. Elias Carmodine is already back, and Ole Miss has designs to play him off the ball. Same thing with Patton, too. But Patton's more of a primary ball handler, I think, than even Elias, so he could play that a little bit, but I don't disagree. I think that's one thing as the portal opens tomorrow that you need to be keeping an eye on. There are a number of candidates that really I've heard some rumblings on, and you can find all of those names at the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, an affiliate of On3. But when you're talking about playmaking guards, you're talking about Sean Padulas, guys that can take over a game with their scoring. Marcus Burton from Notre Dame makes sense. Abid Bashir Jr. from Kansas State. Fred Payne from Boston College. Juke Harris from Wake Forest. Curtis Givens III from Memphis. Ryan Prather from Robert Morris. Cameron Hunter from Central Arkansas. Isaiah Dennis from North Carolina. Caden Lewis from Villanova. Jasper Johnson from Kentucky. Gavin Sykes from Long Beach State. Javin Buchanan from Boise State. Those are just a handful of the players that we've heard some Ole Miss connection to. So make sure that you're plugged into the Ole Miss Spirit, omspirit.com, and affiliate of On3. Dakota King 2457 has been built different yet. Not yet, but we've got a live coming from a Built Different Fitness, and part of that will be the report of my workout escapades, because I actually worked out for the first time in a long time on Thursday at a buddy of mine's house. He's got a little squat and bench machine, so I took it easy, Brad. I didn't put like heavy weight on there. I was like, look, you don't got it like you used to. Take your time, get through it. There's nobody here to judge you. Just do your best. Forget the rest. And I'm telling you, for 3 days now, or 4 days, whatever it's been, I have been sore as all get out. First, it was the legs. At Good Friday, a Good Friday service that evening, I went to the altar to kneel down and give thanks. And the first thing I gave thanks for was the soreness in my legs. I couldn't get up. I couldn't move. Emily was like, could you move? I was like, I'm getting there. And then the next day it was, Dakota King says, don't worry, we all judging you. Good. Hold my feet to the fire. Because then it became the pain in the arms, from doing some dinky curls, and I'm doing arm circles in the middle of choir. What the heck is wrong with me? So, yes, I'm not built different yet, but we're working on it. We're taking baby steps, not leaps. And we'll get there sooner rather than later. Dakota King 2457. I didn't realize how far away your boy was. Yeah, Brad, look at Fred. He said, proud of you, Ben. Thank you, sir. Not much to be proud of. If you just see me, you go, man, you're a ways away. But, Brad, you're next. So get ready to get them games
I need to improve. Yeah, I need to improve. Ben, we got to talk about our friends at Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram. I just had a conversation a couple of days ago that someone went by and talked to Mason, and we're going to get the ad rolling soon. But it's Mason showing one of their Jeeps, and they've got Jeeps, pre-owned. They've got brand new Jeeps. This is Jeep season. I mean, this is when you take the doors off the Jeep. This is when you kind of take the top off and take it to your favorite place of choice, off-road, camping, or if you just want a Sunday afternoon drive, you want to go fishing, whatever. The Jeep is the all-purpose vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And just give Mason a call today, 662-234-8000. Ask for Mason Reeves and say, Mason, Brad said you could hook me up with a Jeep, and call him today, and he'll give you an extra special deal. Go by and drive one today. Or you could go online right now at AllenSamuelsOxford.com and pick one out and say, hey, Mason, I'm on my way. I just picked this one out, and they'll take care of you. They're incredibly grateful staff that you're coming by to see them. And look, it's not just going by for new vehicles. If you've got a vehicle that you purchased there or you didn't purchase there, go by and tell them, hey, change my tires, change my oil. And I promise you, their service will sell you. So if you're not a customer, their service will sell you to be a customer very soon. It's where we all go. We love it. It's on top of the hill, right past Kroger, on the left at University Avenue. Allen Samuels Chrysler Dodge Jeep in Oxford, proud presenting sponsor here on the Talk of Champions.
Trey Freifogel, the former Ole Miss wide receiver, the Jack Ginger. It's coming, baby. It's coming.
That sounds like a T-shirt.
Sounds like many things. But yeah. Like, hey, one day we're gonna get pythons. Buddy, if I ever get pythons, I'll never wear a shirt. I'll be doing podcasts. If I ever got six-pack abs, I never had them. If I ever had six-pack abs, buddy, you'd be like, Ben, put a shirt on. You'd be begging me. Like, first of all, your skin is translucent. Put on a freaking shirt. But even more than that, yeah, we're far away, far a long ways away, my friend Trey Freifogel from the Jack Ginger. But one day, it's funny too, because this Ginger Shrek stuff kind of taking hold a little bit. I wasn't a millionaire off the host stuff. You know what I did get, though? A lot of fun stuff sent to me in the mail, this random stuff, including this Shrek. So I got to put red hair on it, and then that'll be your boy. Maybe whenever I get my shelving, we'll put it like right back here. Like, or where would it be? It'd be like right back here, with Project Pat, with Ludacris. So, yeah, we're not there yet. We're not yet there yet for the Jack Ginger, but we're going to get there. Needs to get jacked when Lane Kiffin and State Troopers come for him again.
Ben, Before we get out of here, the one burning question that you're gonna that needs to be asked tomorrow at the press conference.
The one burning question I want to ask about the tackles, because I've heard good things. I mean, walking around we only got 14 or 12 minutes in our last viewing period. So I spent the whole time just talking to assistant coaches. And one thing I was told that really perked my ears up was that Ole Miss thinks there's higher upside with the tackles it has now, which includes Karius Kern and Tommy Kinsler and Enoch Wangoy, than even starters Diego Pounds and Jaden Williams for this year. Now, I don't really believe that, but I was told Trinidad Chambliss covered up for a lot last year, and these guys, what they have, they're really excited about it. So I want to know what Pete Golding says specifically at that podium. I'm going to ask him straight up, what do you think about your new look tackles? What like, is Enoch Wangoy, which we've heard a sleeper kind of guy to maybe keep an eye on for? All of those things, that will be a huge question for me tomorrow for Pete, because in my opinion, this roster is loaded to contend again. You listen to Connor talk about Ole Miss is potentially one of his 2 picks for the SEC championship game next year. He's more sold on Texas right now, and he's picking between Ole Miss and Georgia as the team that faces them. But there's a reason for that optimism. There's a reason for that bullishness in regards to Ole Miss. Imagine if this was any other program that didn't have the biases that Ole Miss has to fight against all the time, returning 2 Heisman candidates on offense, including their star quarterback and their star running back. Yes, wide receivers got some questions to answer. Yes, the tackles for the offensive line, you got to answer those questions as well. But if it was any other logo and the disrespect wasn't because, oh, well, Ole Miss, you don't deserve to be at this table, and this is something that Ole Miss has to consistently fight, there's no doubt in my mind that this would be a preseason top 10, if not top 5 team. So I'm going to beat the drum of this being a top 5 team until I see otherwise, because they've proven that. They returned so much, including the most important pieces from last year's team. The lane component is obviously one we're going to keep an eye on and see if there's any drop-off whatsoever or any signs of that. But if you look at what they did in the playoff, they won two playoff games. They didn't look like a team that was any different, and they fell one place shy of playing for a national championship, their first since the 60s. So I really do think that Pete Golding's onto something when he says that this is the most depth that Ole Miss has had in his time at Ole Miss so far, which would be 4 years out of 6 under Lane. I would not disagree with that at all, especially with the limited viewing time that we got. You can see that there is more depth of options, right? We don't know who are going to play those roles per se, if they're going to do them as well as, say, DeJon Stribling last year. Caleb Cunningham's had a good start, but can Caleb Cunningham just pick up where DeJon Stribling left off? What does that even look like? It took DeJon Stribling some time to get going. There's a lot of questions in that way, but if you're in terms of on paper, it's hard to argue with what Ole Miss has put together. And I think Ole Miss is, again, built to contend and push for the playoffs, if not another national championship run in the playoffs. The question is what will the schedule, what will, like, is 9-3 good enough with a 9-game SEC schedule? If it is, then, like, I have no doubt in my mind that Ole Miss is going to be a 9-3 team at least. But before the 9-game SEC schedule, 9-3, that was on the outside looking in. The playoff has not expanded. Let's see what that looks like. And if there is deference giving to SEC teams that go 9-3 because of their resume and the strength of their schedules to get in over teams that might be 10-2, even 11-1. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. The schedule is tough, but man, this team's built. This team's built again to truly compete. And I'm with the Titans Mafia, man. I think Jay Crawford, who has taken a little bit more time than I expected per se to get his feet under, but now he's starting to get some regular PBUs, really competing out there, man. I mean, that is a guy that Hugh Freeze told us straight up at the Fiesta Bowl, man. He's an elite NFL corner. And if he is that, which is what Trey Amos was, this defense is going to take massive, massive leaps on top of improving at every level, including at linebacker, portaling over the guy you lost in TJ Daugherty. So my question is going to be about the tackles, but this team is built to contend again, Brad.
Yeah, interested to hear, kind of what happens in week 2, because very limited media availability. But, yeah, been a really good show today. Yeah, thanks a lot for those comments. We appreciate Connor Garrett joining us and everybody joining us. Look, if you've not subscribed to the Ole Miss Spirit, please do so. It's OMSpirit.com. That's an affiliate of On3. Just hit that QR code right up there. And also, if you haven't subscribed, rate, reviewed the Talk of Champions podcast on YouTube, be sure and subscribe there. Every show, you get notified whenever we go live. And then, of course, on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts on the on-demand portion of things, be sure and lock in there and subscribe, rate, and review us there. We appreciate all of you, all of the comments. It's always very much appreciated. If you'd like to be a sponsor of the show, just hit Ben and I up on X at Brad Logan COT or at Spirit Ben. We'd love to get you in contact with the right folks and have you be a part of us from a sponsorship capacity here at the Talk of Champions. We want to thank all of our sponsors, but they do have room for a couple of more, and we'd love to have you on board with us.
Absolutely. He's Brad Logan. I'm Ben Garrett. What is the most important thing in Ole Miss? What are we most watching for at Ole Miss sports this week? For me, it's the basketball portal opening tomorrow, but spring football is obviously going to always carry the day. Going to have a bunch of stuff up on football today at the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, fit on 3, that QR code. What are you most watching for this week? I do want to see baseball continue to show that it wasn't just a half inning outlier, that the offense maybe did find something and kind of pop that seal to be the offense we expected them to be, but you're still hitting, I don't know, like 230-ish around there in conference play. There's a lot to get corrected here. So that's one too. But for you, what are you most paying attention to this week?
Yeah, I'm not saying that the season was saved by any stretch, but what I am saying is that the win against Florida to win the series and to win that game on Saturday, and I do think there's some light that has been breathed back into the program, and I'm excited to see what happens on this weekend's game against LSU. I want to see how the Rebels play. And if the Rebels can win 2 out of 3 against the Tigers this weekend in Oxford, then I think there is a renowned sense of, certainty in this program about the chance of having a really, really special season. So I don't think you need to put all your eggs in one basket with LSU coming up, but I do think you can kind of continue to expound upon having that confidence that you were able to get on Saturday against Florida and continuing to improve on that and to get to that magic mark of what, Ben, 9-10 games in SEC play. I think that's where things are standing right now. Is that pretty fair to say?
If you win 11-19, you finish 15-15 in the SEC, you're hosting, and you're hosting pretty comfortably. But Ole Miss, I don't know if anyone has the confidence in this offense to pull that off with such a difficult schedule. But if they're able to, the bottom line is there are some things to figure out with this team. The offense is not at all what anyone expected, but you just got to keep staying on schedule. You got to keep staying on schedule. You were able to stay on schedule by stealing a half inning because your veteran senior leader slugger Judd Udemark put you on his back and said, "No, we're not going out like this." You got to continue to pull that off. There are obvious warts, and they haven't shown a lot of signs in certain areas yet. But the results are all that matter. So staying on schedule is important. And if you're able to get 2 or 3 this weekend, you do just that. So that's an absolute one we're paying attention to. And like I said, the portal in basketball opens. Spring football continues on. We'll have full coverage at the Ole Miss Spirit, OMSpirit.com, and Fit on 3. This QR code right here, sign up, scan it, sign up today. New members get half off an annual subscription by joining us at the Ole Miss Spirit with our spring sale. He's Brad. I'm Ben. Our thanks to Connor O'Gara. I'll see you later this week, Brad. We're going to be back tomorrow, right? Are you going to be at practice?
I'm going to try. We'll see. We'll be in touch on that.
We'll see. Either way, I will have a practice report. Hopefully Brad will be a part of it, but he's a busiest man. That's the busiest man in showbiz right there. That's Brad Logan. And hopefully he'll be with me, but I will be here for a practice report tomorrow with someone else and hopefully plenty of sound from practice. So stay tuned for that. This has been Talking Champions. We'll see you tomorrow.